picture the ocean. What do you see? Perhaps it's a sun-drenched coral reef, a kaleidoscope of color and motion, where thousands of fish dart through intricate, living architecture. Maybe you imagine the immense, blue emptiness of the open water, a whale song echoing through the depths. For as long as we have existed, we have looked to the sea as the ultimate symbol of life, of boundless energy and mystery. It is our planet's cradle, the ancient nursery where the first flicker of existence sparked into being billions of years ago. It is a world of sound, of movement, of a constant, churning dance of predator and prey. It is a world that breathes. But what if that breath is failing? What if, beneath that shimmering, beautiful surface, the ocean is slowly, silently beginning to suffocate? It's a terrifying thought, one that feels like it belongs in science fiction. Yet, all over the globe, vast stretches of our oceans are becoming what scientists call anoxic. It's a simple, clinical-sounding word for a truly horrifying reality. They are running out of oxygen. This isn't a slow, natural process playing out over geological time. It's happening now, with a speed that is both staggering and deeply unnatural. A silent, creeping plague is spreading through the depths, and we are only just beginning to understand its consequences. How is this even possible? How can an entire ocean, so vast it seems infinite, lose its ability to breathe? The answer lies in a double-edged attack, both from above and from within. As our climate warms, the ocean's surface heats up. It's a fundamental law of physics. Warmer water simply cannot hold as much dissolved gas, including the oxygen that nearly all marine animals depend on. At the same time, our rivers, laden with fertilizers and nutrients from agriculture, pour into the sea. This triggers gargantuan blooms of algae, a green tide that chokes the surface. When this immense biomass dies and sinks, it becomes a feast for bacteria. But their feast has a terrible cost. The process of decomposition consumes oxygen, pulling it from the water at a staggering rate, creating a void that life as we know it cannot fill. The result is the birth of something new and terrifying: the oceanic dead zone. These aren't small, isolated pockets. We are talking about areas of the ocean the size of entire countries, where oxygen levels have plummeted so low that they have become underwater deserts. The dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico can swell to the size of New Jersey. A colossal, naturally occurring oxygen minimum zone in the Pacific is expanding, threatening fisheries that feed millions. Imagine diving into these waters. You would leave the vibrant, noisy world of the sunlit zone and descend into a ghostly, silent realm. There are no fish, no crabs scuttling on the seafloor, no schools of squid jetting through the gloom. There is only stillness. The silence is what's most profound. The constant crackle and hum decoratively life is gone, replaced by a crushing, empty quiet. The water is often murky, filled with a substance known as marine snow, a constant, gentle blizzard of decaying organic matter drifting down from the world of the living above. It is a graveyard, a submerged Pompeii where the normal rules of existence have been suspended. The seafloor isn't sand or rock, but a thick, dark ooze of accumulated decay, untouched by the usual scavengers that would clean it away. Feels profoundly, fundamentally wrong. It is an ecosystem that has not just died, but has been possessed by an unnatural absence. This is not just a place of absence, but a crucible for a new kind of evolution. Life is relentless. It abhors a vacuum. When one form of existence becomes impossible, another will inevitably rise to take its place. The question is, what kind of life can possibly thrive in a world defined by suffocation? The organisms we are familiar with, the fish, the whales, the corals, the crustaceans, are all built around the miracle of oxygen. Their entire biology, their metabolism, their very ability to move and hunt and survive is predicated on its availability. Take that away and you don't just kill them, you erase the very possibility of their existence. So, as these dead zones expand, as they grow deeper, wider, and begin to merge, they are not just erasing the world we know. They are setting the stage for a new one. They are a blank slate, an evolutionary laboratory with a single, brutal entry requirement. You must not need to breathe. This is where the true horror begins to set in. It's not in the death of the old world, but in the potential birth of a new one. We are creating hectare by silent, suffocating hectare, an alien planet the surface of our own. It's an environment so hostile to the life we understand, that anything managing to conquer it would seem utterly monstrous to us. This forces us to ask a deeply unsettling question. As the oxygen vanishes, and the old world of the ocean fades into memory, life must find a way. It will adapt or it will die. But what if it's already adapting? What if the first heirs of this breathless kingdom are already starting to stir in the silent, black mud? What unholy things, born of chemical poisons and utter darkness, are already learning to thrive in a world without breath? So, what takes over when the familiar world of gills and fins and beating hearts fades away? When you peer into the suffocating darkness of a dead zone, what stares back? The answer is not some fanged leviathan from a nightmare. Not at first. The first heirs to this breathless, silent kingdom are far smaller, far older, and in many ways, far more terrifying. To find them, we have to abandon our sense of scale, leaving behind the world of the visible and journeying into the microscopic. Here, in the sunless, oxygen-starved ooze, an ancient empire is reawakening. The true inheritors of the dead zones are not animals at all, but a sprawling, unseen world of microbes. These are the extremophiles, bacteria and archaea that thrive in conditions that would mean instant death for almost everything else. They aren't new arrivals. They are relics from a bygone era, from a time before our planet's atmosphere was rich with oxygen. For billions of years, they have waited patiently in the shadows of the ecosystem, lurking in deep-sea vents, buried in mud, anywhere they could escape the oxygen that is poison to them. Now, as we create more and more of their preferred habitat, they are not just surviving, they are expanding. It is less of an invasion and more of a reclamation, as these ancient forms of life emerge to retake a world that was once theirs. But how can anything live without breathing? For us, and for every animal you can think of, oxygen is the key that unlocks the energy in our food. It's a powerful, efficient process, like a roaring bonfire that generates immense heat and light. These microbes, however, practice a different kind of alchemy. They rely on anaerobic respiration, a form of metabolism that feels alien to us. Instead of oxygen, they breathe other chemicals. Some use sulfate, the dissolved salts in seawater, and exhale hydrogen sulfide, the very chemical that gives rotten eggs their noxious smell. Others use nitrates or even metals like iron and manganese to power their existence. It's a slow, smoldering burn compared to our biological fire, but in a world with no oxygen, the smolder is the only game in town. When you have trillions upon trillions of these microbes all living together, they cease to be individual cells and become something more. They form vast, cohesive structures called microbial mats. Imagine the seafloor, for as far as the eye can see, being covered not with sand or silt, but with a living, growing carpet. These mats can be inches thick, with a slimy, gelatinous texture, colored in the sickly, unnatural hues of their strange chemistry. There are mats of deep purple sulfur bacteria, patches of ghostly white, and streaks of rusty orange where iron-oxidizing microbes are at work. This isn't just a layer of slime on the mud. It's a new, living landscape being drawn over the bones of the old one. And in the absolute, crushing blackness of the abyss, these microbial fields begin to glow. This is not the familiar, friendly bioluminescence of a firefly or a deep-sea fish, used to attract a mate or lure prey. This is something stranger. It is a cold, chemical light, a faint, ghostly luminescence that is a simple, purposeless byproduct of their metabolic reactions. Entire plains of the seafloor, stretching for miles, could be bathed in a constant, eerie, silent glow. It's a cold fire, illuminating nothing but the dead particles drifting down from above. This is the new starlight of the deep, and it shines over a world utterly devoid of the life we understand. This glowing, growing, breathing carpet of slime is the new foundation of life in the anoxic ocean. On the sunlit surface of our world, the entire food web is built on phytoplankton and plants, the producers that capture the sun's energy. Here, in the dark, these chemosynthetic microbes are the new primary producers. They are the grass of this alien pasture. They don't draw energy from the sun, but from the chemical soup of the dead zone itself, turning poison into sustenance. They have created a boundless, all-you-can-eat buffet where nothing else can survive. An entire ecosystem is being built from the ground up on a bedrock of what we would consider toxic sludge. The environment they create is not merely empty. It becomes actively hostile to the life that came before. As they consume sulfates, they release enormous quantities of hydrogen sulfide, a potent neurotoxin. The water becomes acidic, corrosive. It is a form of terraforming, but in reverse. These microbes are not just inhabiting the dead zone. They are reinforcing its deadliness, ensuring that their old, oxygen-breathing competitors can never return. They are locking the door behind them, securing their new kingdom with a wall of poison. The ocean is no longer just a graveyard. It is becoming a fortress for its new masters. A new lawn has been planted across the bottom of the world, an endless pasture of nutritious, energy-rich slime. And in the grand, ruthless history of evolution, no feast goes uneaten for long. This microbial bounty is far too valuable an opportunity to be ignored forever. The question is no longer about what died to create this world, but what will be born from it. A new food source of this magnitude demands a new kind of consumer. So, as these glowing plains of slime expand, we must ask, what strange new grazers are already evolving to wander these dark, poisonous pastures? An endless, glowing field of microbial slime now carpets the seafloor. It is a feast laid out in the dark, a chemical banquet promising boundless energy. But for whom? The animals of the old world, the fish and crabs and squid, cannot survive here. Even if they could withstand the toxic water, the very act of moving, hunting, and digesting requires oxygen, the one thing this new world forbids. It's an evolutionary catch, 22. A buffet is open for business, but the front door is locked and the air inside is poison. So, how does life solve this puzzle? How does it cross the threshold from the breathing world into the breathless one? Before life makes the final, terrifying leap into a new form of existence, it will first find clever, horrifying ways to cheat the system. It will learn to become a tourist in this alien landscape. We actually see the beginnings of this strategy today in some of the ocean's most remarkable survivors. Take the Humboldt squid, a powerful, intelligent predator. These animals will deliberately dive into the ocean's natural oxygen minimum zones, areas where the oxygen is perilously thin. They go where other predators cannot follow, hunting the few creatures that are trapped or adapted to the low oxygen conditions. But they can't stay. Their bodies are built for oxygen. They are holding their breath, and the clock is always ticking. They are visitors, raiding a forbidden territory before retreating to the safety of the breathing world. This is the crucial first step. But evolution is patient, and far more ruthless than a simple hunter. What if a creature could find a way to stay in the dead zone, to live there, but bring its oxygen with it? Not in its own lungs, but in the body of another. This is where the first true monster of our anoxic future is born. It begins with something humble, a creature already found in every ocean on Earth. The polychaete worm. Segmented, adaptable, and incredibly diverse, these worms are the ultimate survivors. And in the suffocating dark, one branch of this family tree is about to take a grim and radical evolutionary turn. Meet the creature we'll call the vascular leech. It no longer resembles its colorful, bristly ancestors. It is a pale, almost translucent ribbon of an animal, its body simplified to the absolute bare essentials. Its metabolism is so slow it's barely distinguishable from death. It doesn't hunt. It doesn't forage. It simply waits, lying motionless on the toxic microbial mats, a lethargic ghost in the machine. It is biding its time, conserving every last shred of energy, waiting for a heartbeat. It is waiting for a visitor from the world above. A deep-diving fish, or perhaps a Humboldt squid, pushes its luck too far. It plunges into the dead zone, chasing prey, and becomes disoriented in the toxic water. As it passes over the seafloor, the vascular leech senses the pressure change, the faint electrical field of living muscle. In a flash of movement that betrays its otherwise inert existence, it strikes. It doesn't bite to kill or to feed on flesh. Its goal is far more insidious. Specialized mouthparts, evolved from the bristles of its ancestors, pierce the host's skin, seeking out a major artery or the delicate tissue of the gills. It latches on, not as a predator, but as a parasite of the most intimate kind. And here is where the true horror lies. The leech is not drinking blood for food. It has evolved a nightmarish secondary circulatory system. It begins to siphon the host's bright red, oxygen-rich blood, pumping it not into a stomach, but through a network of its own vessels that lie just under its skin. The host's blood flows through the parasite's body, and the leech's tissues passively absorb the life-giving oxygen. It has turned its victim into a living, breathing scuba tank. The host fish, already struggling in the low-oxygen water, feels a sudden, inexplicable weakness, a sense of drowning even as it swims. It is being suffocated from the inside out by the pale, clinging shape it cannot dislodge. This creature is a masterpiece of evolutionary efficiency. It can feast on the microbial mats at its leisure, using the stolen oxygen from its host to power its digestion. When the host finally succumbs, starved of its own breath, the leech simply detaches and lies in wait for the next one. It has become a permanent resident of the dead zone, tethered to the world of oxygen only by the living batteries it consumes. It is a biological vampire, but it doesn't steal life. It steals breath. It is a chillingly successful strategy, allowing it to colonize a world that should be uninhabitable, turning the last holdouts of the old world into fuel for the new. But as ingenious as this is, it's still a compromise. The vascular leech is a bridge between two worlds, a horrifying but ultimately temporary solution. Its existence is still dependent on the stragglers from the dying world of oxygen. It's a clever hack, a tether to the past. The ultimate evolutionary prize, the true conquest of the anoxic ocean, would mean cutting that tether for good. So what happens next? What happens when an animal evolves to give up on oxygen entirely, to let go of the old world completely and embrace the poison? Stealing breath from a dying world is a clever strategy, a parasitic hack that allows life to cling to the edges of the abyss. But it's a temporary fix, a lifeline to a past that is fading. The vascular leech, as terrifying as it is still a dependent, a slave to the oxygen it must steal. To truly conquer the suffocating depths, life must perform its most profound act of rebellion. It must learn to forget oxygen entirely. It must sever the biological cord that has connected nearly every animal to the air for over 500 million years and embrace a completely new way to live. How does a complex animal achieve such an impossible leap? It doesn't invent the solution from scratch. Instead, it does what life has always done when faced with an insurmountable barrier. It forms an alliance. Billions of years ago, a simple cell engulfed a bacterium that knew how to use oxygen. Instead of digesting it, the cell put it to work, and this partnership gave rise to all complex life on Earth. That ancient bacterium became the mitochondria that power our very own cells. Life is about to pull the same trick again, but this time, the partner it chooses is not a creature of oxygen, but a master of poison. This is where we leave the realm of parasites and enter the world of true symbiosis. This is where we meet the first true native of the anoxic ocean. Let's call it the iron lung Medusa. At first glance, you might mistake it for a massive jellyfish, a silent, gelatinous bell pulsing slowly through the dark water. But as it drifts closer, you realize something is deeply wrong. Its body isn't translucent. It has a strange, almost metallic luster, an iridescent sheen that shifts from rust red to a slick, oily black. It moves with a slowness that feels less biological and more geological, as if you are watching a continent drift. The iron lung Medusa does not breathe. It does not have gills, lungs, or a circulatory system filled with oxygen-carrying blood. It doesn't need them. Its entire existence is powered by an internal, living engine made of captive microbes. Inside its gelatinous body are specialized chambers, dark and warm, where it cultures the very same anaerobic bacteria that form the slimy mats on the seafloor. The Medusa is a farmer, and its crop is a colony of chemosynthetic symbiotes that it carries within itself, a living power plant housed in a living body. Its method of survival is both simple and profoundly alien. It glides slowly through the water, its huge bell acting as a passive sieve, ingesting vast quantities of the murky water. It isn't filtering for plankton or food in the traditional sense. It is drinking in the raw ingredients for its internal furnace. Water rich with dissolved iron particles, washed down from the land over millennia. This metallic water is funneled into its symbiotic chambers, where the captive bacteria get to work. They breathe the iron, oxidizing it in the same way our bodies burn sugar. They rust it. This chemical reaction releases a burst of energy, which the Medusa then absorbs. This creature is, in essence, a living, breathing furnace that runs on rust. Its existence is utterly passive. It doesn't need to hunt. It doesn't need to flee. Food is everywhere. The very water it floats in is its sustenance. It has no brain to speak of, no central nervous system for making decisions. Its life is a slow, constant chemical process. Its only behaviors are to drift towards higher concentrations of dissolved metals and to sink deeper if it senses the dangerous presence of oxygen. It is less an animal and more of a self-replicating, mobile geological event. Imagine the sight of these things. Behemoths the size of small whales, moving with an ancient, dreamlike slowness through the silent, glowing dark. Their bodies glitter with the unearthly sheen of the metallic compounds they are filled with. They are beautiful in a way that a mineral vein or an oil slick is beautiful, impersonal, alien, and cold. They are a monument to a new kind of life, one that has utterly abandoned the frantic, oxygen-fueled struggle we are familiar with. They are the ultimate pacifists, with no enemies and no needs beyond the water they float in. But nature abhors a vacuum, and it also abhors an unguarded resource. These giant, slow-moving bags of organic matter and stored energy represent a staggering evolutionary opportunity. They are the new whales, the new krill, the new cattle of the deep. A creature that does not need to breathe is a marvel, a triumph of biological imagination. But in the ruthless, unending story of evolution, every marvel eventually becomes a meal. So, as these silent, glittering giants begin to populate the depths, a new question arises. What could possibly prey on a living mountain of rust? The deep ocean is now a silent, alien world, populated by glittering, rust-powered behemoths. The iron-lung Medusas drift through the dark, their slow, majestic procession a testament to life's tenacity. They have no predators. They have no fear. In their passive, chemical existence, they have achieved a kind of perfection. They are mountains of living tissue, vast stores of energy, floating unguarded through the abyss. And in the brutal calculus of evolution, a resource of this magnitude cannot remain unexploited for long. A new question hangs in the toxic water. How do you hunt a living mountain in a world where you cannot afford to run? In our familiar, oxygen-rich world, predation is a game of speed and power. The cheetah chases the gazelle. The shark ambushes the seal. These are explosive encounters, burning immense amounts of energy that can only be provided by the rapid fire of oxygen metabolism. But in the anoxic depths, that fire has gone out. A chase is a physical impossibility. A high-speed attack would be a death sentence, consuming energy that simply cannot be replenished. The predator of this new world cannot be a hunter. It must become a trap. The solution arises not from a single animal, but from a colony. It finds its evolutionary roots in creatures like corals or the Portuguese man-o'-war, organisms made of many small, specialized individuals working together as one. Descended from a hardy, deep-sea anemone, this new entity gives up on moving altogether. It anchors itself to the hard volcanic rock of the seafloor and begins to grow. It is not an animal in the way we typically understand it. It is a place. It is a habitat of death. We will call it the Gorgon's Garden. At first, it looks like a geological formation, a forest of thin, pale spires reaching up from the seabed, branching out like the skeletons of dead trees. They are chalky white, calcified and rigid, swaying gently in the imperceptible currents. This is not living tissue in the soft, fleshy sense. It is a scaffold, a mineral framework secreted by the colonial organism that lives within. As it grows, it spreads, one tree connecting to the next via a root-like network on the seafloor, until it is a single, interconnected entity covering square miles. It is a forest that is also one single creature. This petrified forest is a masterpiece of deception. Its purpose is singular, to ensnare the iron-lung Medusas. Dotted along its ghostly white branches are lures. These are specialized polyps that have evolved to mimic the faint, chemical glow of the microbial mats the Medusas feed on. To a slow, passive Medusa, these faint lights are a beacon, signaling a denser patch of the iron-rich water it seeks. It drifts towards the light, its massive, unthinking body bumping gently against one of the calcified branches. And then the trap is sprung. The moment of contact triggers a horrifying response. The bark of the branch is not solid. It is a thin mineral shell covering thousands of microscopic stinging cells, the cnidocytes of its anemone ancestors. But these are no ordinary stingers. They don't inject a simple neurotoxin to paralyze. Their payload is something far more sinister, tailored perfectly to this anoxic world. The harpoons fire, injecting a chemical cocktail directly into the Medusa's gelatinous tissue. This chemical is a hyper-efficient oxygen scavenger. It is a compound designed to find and bind with any oxygen molecule it encounters, instantly rendering it inert. The effect is catastrophic and immediate. While the Medusa doesn't breathe, its basic cellular functions still rely on trace amounts of oxygen scavenged from its food and water. The injected chemical causes a wave of rapid, internal suffocation at the cellular level. Its own biology turns on itself as every last molecule of oxygen is violently ripped from its cells. There is no struggle. The massive creature simply stops. The faint internal glow of its symbiotic bacteria extinguishes. Its slow, rhythmic pulse ceases. It hangs there, impaled on the branch, a dead weight in the dark. The forest has claimed its victim. Once the Medusa is dead, the Gorgon's garden begins its slow feast. The branches secrete powerful digestive enzymes, dissolving the vast organism where it hangs, absorbing the nutrient-rich slurry. It is a passive, patient, and terrifyingly efficient system. A miles-wide, stationary death trap that waits for its food to simply drift into its arms. It has become the apex predator of the abyss without ever moving an inch. It has turned an entire region of the seafloor into its stomach. A new, alien ecosystem has now fully established itself, complete with producers, grazers, and a dominant apex predator. It is a stable, self-sustaining world, born from suffocation and poison. But ecosystems are not static. The most successful ones expand. The Gorgon's garden and the creatures it preys on have conquered the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean. But the deep is not isolated. The dead zones are creeping ever higher, pushing up the continental shelves, getting closer and closer to the sunlit world. So what happens when this new world, this silent, suffocating forest, begins to rise? We have a habit of thinking of the deep sea as another planet, a realm so distant and alien that its affairs could never touch our own. We've comforted ourselves with the sheer weight of the water above it, an immense barrier of pressure and darkness that separates our sunlit world from the mysteries below. We imagine monsters, yes, but they were distant monsters, safely confined to the abyss. But there is no wall. The ocean is one continuous body, and the changes we have forced upon the deep are not staying there. The alien world we helped create is beginning to stir, and its borders are expanding. The horror is coming to the surface. For decades, we've tracked the growth of the dead zones as they spread across the deep ocean floor. But now, they are no longer just spreading out. They are rising. As the surface of the ocean warms, it becomes lighter, creating a stark, stable layer that acts like a lid, preventing oxygen from the atmosphere from mixing into the waters below. At the same time, the endless flood of nutrients from our coasts fuels an ever-thickening soup of algae at the surface. When it dies and rots, it consumes the oxygen beneath that lid, pushing the boundary of the anoxic zone relentlessly upward, from the abyss onto the continental shelves. The buffer between their world and ours is getting thinner every single day. The first signs are subtle, easily dismissed. The water at your favorite beach starts to look off. It's a murky, rust-red color that lingers long after a normal algal bloom would have dissipated. It's the permanent stain of those iron-breathing microbes, now thriving in the shallow, oxygen-starved coastal waters. The air itself smells different. The familiar, salty tang of the sea is tinged with something else, a faint, foul undertone of sulfur and metal. The ocean no longer smells entirely alive. It's the first warning that the chemistry of the deep is no longer staying in the deep.